welcome once again to Making Tracks, the programme that deals with railways throughout the world, which is on steam operations.
Well, this week we're at the Mid-Hants Railway, or Watercress Line as it's known, and we'll be looking around it later in the programme.
But first from Austria, an unusual story. The OBB is the first European mainline administration to have recently ordered a brand new steam locomotive. The Schneeberg Rack Railway found itself in need of extra motive power to supplement its fleet of steam locomotives. The result was this strange and fascinating engine. It's diesel oil fired, uses a steam motor driving the rack wheels over a 2.5 to 1 transmission, and has electronic controls including men's knob. Electrically preheated, the boiler takes 5 minutes to flash up to full pressure. 4 minutes to flash up to full pressure. The thermal insulation saves fuel when standing still. This engine is as efficient as a diesel locomotive. On the 7th of May 1993, the loco made its inaugural run on the line for test and clearance purposes. The shed at Puchberg sees much activity prior to the departure of the trains for the day, and the addition of the special did not help the congestion. On these rack locos, the downward pitched boilers are necessary so that when going uphill, they're level, keeping the water covering the firebox. The conventional rack locomotives certainly make their presence known as they push their coaches up the severe gradients. The new engine, by contrast, has a very different sound, and it's difficult to believe that it's a steam loco at all. As part of the test run, 2 new coaches were attached for clearance checks. These coaches being much wider than the conventional type. After waiting for a return working to pass on the single line, the special finally arrived at the summit in cloud and rain. The authorities pronouncing the first run of this unique train a great success. Ironically, on the same day, 2 reconditioned old-style coaches were delivered to Puchberg, arriving on the main line.
And now for a different type of main line, a main line in miniature. The Ravenglass and Eskdale Railway in Cumbria, operating steam locomotives over a scenic route in the foothills of the Lake District. The Ravenglass and Eskdale Railway has all the look of a purpose-built tourist line. It was, however, originally opened in May 1875 to transport iron ore from the mines in the Eskdale area. Built to 3-foot gauge, it began to carry passengers just over a year later. Since then, it's seen many changes of fortune. Closed in 1913, it was reopened 2 years later as a 15-inch gauge line. And after a long period of successful operation as a freight and passenger service, it was finally threatened with complete closure in 1960. This time, the end seemed certain, but as has happened many times since, the preservation movement was born out of the dedication and enthusiasm of a few individuals. Through their efforts and persistence, they've managed to secure the necessary means to save the railway. Since that time, it's gone from strength to strength. Achievements include the building of new workshops and carriage shed, and the refurbishment of Muncaster Watermill, just over a mile up the line from Ravenglass. The railway also has the capability to construct its own locomotives, Northern Rock being built at Ravenglass in 1976. This handsome 262 is probably the most powerful 15-inch gauge locomotive in the world. An innovation here is the use of a modern radio control system on trains, the first railway in Britain to be so equipped. The Ravenglass and Eskdale Railway is a must for those visiting the Lake District, for no other 15-inch gauge line in Britain runs through such magnificent scenery. So come and visit this main line in miniature. But don't forget the waterproofs, just in case.
In Hampshire, the section of the line between Alton and Winchester, part of which is now the Mid-Hants Railway, was often used as a diversionary route for expresses from Waterloo to Bournemouth, and is therefore engineered to mainline standards. It's not surprising to see many big engines working on this line, whose name derives from the large quantities of watercress transported from the beds in the Alresford area to the markets. The line is steeply graded, and BR railmen often refer to the journey along this 10-mile section as going over the Alps. The Mid-Hants has endeavoured to keep an authentic flavour to its motive power, and many of the locos come from various Southern Railway companies. Surprisingly, the majority of the engines are turned out in British Rail livery and with BR numbers. Like many preserved railways, the going has not always been easy, and I asked its chief executive, James Freeman, about the present situation.
We actually have had the opportunity almost to start again with this business. We reached absolute rock bottom about a year ago, but since that time we've managed to recover the position from a trading point of view and turn the railway back into a business both with a real future and with a confidence in itself. Now, what we've sought to do is to treat our visitors as a whole range of different types of people and try and meet their needs in different ways. So we've already this year had a weekend in February, in the cold winter time, aimed specifically at the steam enthusiasts, and we were rewarded by droves of them arriving to come back to our railway. Now this weekend we have Thomas the Tank Engine here. We're aiming at a completely different market. Children, very young children in many cases, mums and dads, particularly mums. We don't normally appeal to mums here. It's very much a dad's place. But we've got lots of mums here now. Equally, in successive weekends, we have special facilities for diesel enthusiasts, for different types of steam enthusiasts, and so it goes on.
This highlights the problem facing many preserved lines. There's often an uneasy alliance between the aims and aspirations of steam railways as authentic working museums and the real need to appeal to the general public by adopting a more commercial approach. The harsh reality is that enthusiasts alone couldn't possibly generate enough revenue to keep these railways alive. Events such as this are therefore becoming commonplace throughout the preserved railway network, giving pleasure to thousands of people who wouldn't normally come to these railways and experience steam at first hand. The Midlands Railway and its fellow preserved lines have probably got the balance about right, catering at different times for a whole spectrum of the population and providing a wealth and diversity of steam preservation unequaled anywhere else in the world. South Africa, despite its many problems, is a country well worth visiting for the steam enthusiast. The preservation movement in the shape of the Transnet Museum provides a wealth of locomotives available to haul long-distance rail tours.
The Cape Mountaineer II was one such event, organised by the Transnet Museum in conjunction with a British rail tour operator. Over 1,600 miles of steam haulage was undertaken by 16 different classes of locomotive, and the prime objective was to provide optimum photographic opportunities. The South African winter presents some of the finest natural lighting conditions in the world. Add a steam locomotive and you have pure magic. Southern Africa is famous for its many classes of Garratt articulated locomotives, and these magnificent machines look well suited to this rugged and impressive terrain. Even the occasional spell of bad weather can make for a very atmospheric setting in some of the awesome gorges and canyons. Many South African locos are of British origin, such as this 480 Class 7A, built by Nielsen's in 1896. Also from Nielsen's is number 645, a Class 6J 460, built in 1902, while the North British Locomotive Company supplied all 100 of the Class 24s, one of which is seen at a famous photographic location. As in many countries, the survival of active preserved steam here very much depends on the level of support given to rail tours such as this. So for those interested in railway photography, or even just the experience of travelling through some of the finest scenery in Africa by rail, then one of these steam safaris would be well worth considering. And that's all we have time for this week. In the next programme, we shall be going to the Middleton Railway in Leeds, where they have some of the smallest standard gauge locomotives in preservation.
And on the other end of the scale, we'll be visiting the Sacramento Rail Fair, where giants of steam were still in operation back in 1991.
Also in 1991, we have highlights from a rail tour in the Ukraine, when it was still part of the Soviet Union. And of course, some more steam specials on the main line. So until next week, goodbye.
Goodbye.
And you can see that rail tour of the Ukraine when we're making tracks tomorrow afternoon at 1:45.